The ship Vanguard's promise was not beautiful by the standards of the galaxy it entered. Its hull was pitted from micrometeorite strikes, its radiators stained by years of heat cycles, and its engines thrummed with the imperfect heartbeat of human machinery. Yet as it slid from the void between stars into the reach of the blue-white sun of the Caravel system, it was the most extraordinary vessel that Sun had ever seen, because no human craft had ever come this far. Captain Sera Talan stood at the forward viewport, her hand resting on the metal rim, polished smooth by nervous touch. Her reflection showed a face leaner than it had been when they'd left Sol, with the hard eyes of someone who had watched entire decades burn away in the slow crawl of interstellar travel. Around her, the bridge was a muted orchestra of breath, clicks, and status lights. The jump drive, a relativistic slingshot of plasma and folded space geometry, had taken them across 1,000 light years in an instant that felt like falling and burning all at once. Their target had been chosen by the coalition of nations back home, a system suspected to host an inhabited world. For a generation, humankind had listened to whispers of distant radio signals, mathematical in structure but cold and uninterpretable. The Caravel transmissions had been the most promising. Now their sensors confirmed it. "Contact," murmured technician Rosantal, the youngest of the bridge crew. "Orbital stations, multiple, metallic-powered. I'm getting artificial emissions across multiple bands." The bridge went quiet except for the soft hum of machinery. Even the air felt charged. "Alive," said Sera softly. "They're real." No one dared cheer. They had trained for this moment their entire lives, yet none could find words that felt large enough for the weight of it. Humanity had crossed the void and found someone waiting. The first alien they encountered was not flesh, but metal. The Vanguard's promise took up orbit around Caravel 3, a verdant planet of wide oceans and emerald continents. It was there that a vessel of local origin approached, a silver crescent, elegant in curvature and perfectly symmetrical, gliding through the void with no visible propulsion. It halted 50 kilometers off their port bow. "Transmission incoming," said Communications Officer Ilian Var. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic console, filtering and decoding. Structured signal, repeating intervals, amplitude modulation. Pattern matches mathematics. They're starting with prime numbers. "They know we're intelligent," Sera said. "Respond in kind." They spent the next hour exchanging bursts of encoded numerals, then geometric patterns, then simple diagrams. The language of mathematics was a ladder they both climbed. When the alien craft transmitted an image that could only be a representation of themselves, tall, four-limbed, soft-bodied, with intricate frills along the head, Sera's chest tightened. "They're real," whispered Ro, "living beings." The crew stared at the screen, where the alien visage shimmered in silver-blue lines. Then the aliens transmitted a final burst, a coordinate set leading to a point on the planet's surface. "An invitation," said Ilian. Sera exhaled slowly. "Prepare the lander." The landing team numbered 6. Captain Sera Talan led them, with engineer Vhoran Vey, linguist Mara Delenn, security chief Chorus Jan, biologist Lion Revek, and pilot Thalen Brigg. Each had spent years in cryosleep, dreaming of this moment, rehearsing 1,000 possible first contacts. The descent was through soft, blue skies dotted with silver clouds. Below stretched plains of green, so vibrant they seemed almost to glow. The coordinates guided them to a plateau where strange crystalline towers rose like glass spires. Waiting there were the beings themselves. They were called the Vakar. Their bodies were supple and smooth, clothed in iridescent sheaths that reflected the sun in shifting hues. They stood on 2 limbs, but balanced with 2 additional arms that folded close to their sides, and their faces were expressions of intricate movement rather than muscle, tiny bioluminescent patterns shifting across skin like rippling constellations. One stepped forward, raising a limb in greeting. A shimmering device at its throat pulsed, and a voice emerged, slow and deliberate, each word spaced with careful precision. "You come from far beyond." The sound was musical, the pronunciation imperfect but astonishingly clear. Mara's heart pounded as she activated her own translator, which projected her voice in synthesized harmonics. "We are travelers from the world called Earth, of the Sol Star. We come in peace, seeking understanding." The Vakar studied her, then inclined its head. "You seek to join the Accord?" Sera glanced at her team. "Accord," the translator rendered a burst of alien terms, but the essence was clear. A confederation, an ancient network of species bound by trade, law, and shared exploration. The Vakar were but one among many. "We wish only to learn," Sera said, "to know the people among the stars." The Vakar's bioluminescence rippled again, colors shifting like dawn over water. "Then you will be tested." The test began not in laboratories or chambers of philosophy, but in orbit. 3 days later, the humans were invited aboard a Vakar station, a lattice of metal and crystals so fine it seemed spun from moonlight. Inside, corridors flowed like living sculpture. The Vakar guided them to a vast chamber where other species waited. There were the Keral, hulking beings of chitin and translucent muscle, speaking in low, resonant tones. The Zelith, floating organisms whose tendrils shimmered with light, and others beyond description. Mara realized with a quiet thrill that humanity had stepped into the galactic community's heart. An elder Vakar, distinguished by deep golden fractals across its skin, addressed them. "The Accord watches all who arrive from beyond. Many come, few remain. The test is not of strength, but of purpose." Engineer Vhoran whispered, "So we're applicants to civilization." The elder continued, "Each new species must prove it can contribute. Some bring technology, some art, some wisdom. What do you bring?" Sera met the elder's gaze. "We bring persistence. When our world was dust, we built shelter. When our oceans turned against us, we sailed them. When the sky was unreachable, we made it ours. We are not the first to reach the stars, but we are the ones who refuse to stop." There was silence. Then the elder's fractal lights brightened, as if in approval. "Then you will be given a proving." The proving came sooner than expected. An orbital transport carrying members of multiple species suffered a reactor failure near the planet's magnetosphere. Radiation storms flared, and the vessel began to break apart. The Vakar hesitated to intervene. Their vessels were delicate, designed for grace, not rescue in lethal fields. But the Vanguard's promise had been built for endurance. Sera didn't hesitate. "We'll go." Engineer Vhoran's hands flew across the console. "Our shields can handle that flux only for 20 minutes. Then we make 20 minutes count." The rescue mission became humanity's first true act before the galaxy's eyes. The promise plunged through the radiation belt, hull glowing with iron fire. Inside, heat alarms screamed. Panels warped. But the crew worked in perfect unity, Vhoran rerouting power, Chorus sealing bulkheads, Lion monitoring for contamination. They docked with the crippled transport and cut through its hull with torches meant for asteroid mining. Alien passengers, Vakar, Keral, Zelith, stared in disbelief as humans, sweating and grim, pulled them to safety through corridors thick with smoke. When the last survivor was aboard, the Promise's reactor nearly gave out. Vhoran vented the entire fuel line manually, burning his arm through the suit. The ship limped free, battered but alive. Later, in orbit, the Vakar elder addressed them again. "You risked yourselves for those not of your kind." "Why?" Sera's voice was steady, though her body ached. "Because life is rare, and courage means nothing if it's only for your own." The elder's bioluminescence dimmed, then brightened to a radiant gold. "Then you have shown the heart of your species. The Accord will hear your petition." For the first time since leaving Sol, Sera allowed herself to smile. Humanity had taken its first step into the community of stars, and not through conquest or wealth, but through compassion and grit. Yet even as they celebrated aboard the Vanguard's promise, a transmission arrived from the Vakar High Council. A new voice, sharp and clipped, spoke through the comms. "Humanity's actions have not gone unnoticed. There are those who question your nature, who believe that what burns so bright may also destroy." The screen went dark. Sera stared into the endless field of stars beyond the viewport. She knew with cold certainty that their proving had only begun. The Vanguard's promise was docked within a ring of silver latticework above the blue-green world of Caravel. From the station's observation galleries, humanity's first explorers could see ships of every shape and hue gliding through the void, some immense and slow as mountains, others slender and darting, glowing faintly with iron trails. Every motion beyond that window whispered of a civilization older and more intricate than their dreams had ever dared to hold. Yet all Sera Talan could think about was the message. There are those who question your nature. The words haunted her as she stood at the viewport, eyes following the slow rotation of the Vhoran station. Humanity had been granted provisional recognition, the first step toward inclusion within the Accord. But acceptance required unanimous assent from its members, and some of them, it seemed, were not eager to see another aggressive young species rise among the stars. Behind her, the low hum of conversation echoed through the command deck. The bridge crew worked in subdued tones, as if the very air around them might betray their presence to unseen observers. Linguist Mara Delenn approached, a tablet of datalight in her hands. "We've identified the source of the transmission, Captain. It came from an outpost within the Accord's jurisdiction, the Ilaris Enclave." "Ilaris?" Sera asked, turning. "They're old," Mara said. "Older than the Vhoran. Records suggest they were among the founding signatories of the Accord. Their influence is considerable." "Which means if they doubt us," said Engineer Vhoran Ve from across the deck, "the rest will hesitate to trust us too." Sera nodded. "What exactly do they doubt?" Mara hesitated before answering. "They believe humanity's expansionist past defines us, that our wars, our environmental collapse, our survival at any cost, these are signs of a species too volatile to coexist peacefully." Sera's jaw tightened. "They're not wrong about our past, but they haven't seen who we are now. Then perhaps we show them," said Corus Jan, the security chief. His heavy frame leaned against a bulkhead, arms crossed. "We can talk forever, but people believe what they witness." Sera turned toward the stars again, her reflection a ghost over their gleam. "Prepare a request for diplomatic passage to the Ilaris Enclave. If we're going to earn their trust, we'll do it face to face." 2 days later, the Vanguard's promise slipped free of its moorings and set course for Ilaris space. The journey was not long by interstellar standards, a single jump through folded space geometry, the same dangerous technology that had once stranded human explorers in frozen limbo. But now, the crew trusted it implicitly. Humanity had learned the hard way that the stars demanded faith in engineering as much as in courage. Vhoran Ve stood beside the drive core as it roared to life. The air smelled faintly of ozone, the sound a deep, rhythmic pulse that resonated through the metal bones of the ship. He had designed many of the ship's systems himself, adapting decades-old Earth tech to withstand the alien energy signatures now commonplace in Accord space. "Drive geometry stable," reported Ro Santel, monitoring the readings. "Field integrity at 97%. "Then we're good," Vhoran said, tightening a manual clamp. "Let's hope the Ilaris like visitors." The jump came and went like a breath drawn through the soul. The Ilaris Enclave was unlike anything they had seen. Where Vhoran stations gleamed like spun crystal, the Ilaris habitats resembled vast woven spheres of copper and glass, connected by cables that shimmered with soft, golden light. The effect was less mechanical and more organic, as if the enclave had grown from living matter rather than been assembled. Sera guided the promise into a docking corridor under the supervision of Ilaris Control. Their language had already been partly decoded, a network of harmonics and tonal layers that even the translator struggled to manage. As they descended in their shuttle toward the surface of the enclave's primary sphere, Sera's pulse quickened. The landing pad curved beneath them, surrounded by open terraces from which thousands of Ilaris watched in silence. The Ilaris were ethereal beings, tall, limber, and nearly translucent. Their skin bore faint networks of light, that pulsed in rhythm with their speech. They moved with a grace that seemed almost liquid. One approached, adorned with a crest of interlocking metal plates that caught the sunlight like rippling water. "I am Ilaris Senarch Avaru," it said in measured tones. "Representative of the council, you have come to petition acceptance." Sera inclined her head respectfully. "We come to understand and to be understood." Avaru's gaze, if such soft, luminous eyes could be called, that lingered on her for a long moment. "Then let us see if understanding is possible." They were led into the Hall of Reflection, a space that appeared to float within the enclave's sphere. Panels of glass formed the floor, revealing the world's glowing heart far below. The air itself seemed to hum faintly, carrying an echo of every voice that had ever spoken there. Representatives of several species were present, their forms arranged in a wide circle. The Vakar elder who had first met them was among them, a subtle nod of encouragement flashing across its light patterns. Avaru took the central dais. "Humans of Earth, you have shown bravery and mercy in rescuing those of other kinds. Yet our archives tell of your nature, a history written in conflict, your environment reshaped by your own hand until it nearly destroyed you. Why should we believe you will not bring that destruction here?" Sera stepped forward. "Because we remember what it cost us. Our history isn't a mark of shame, it's a warning we carry. Every world we build now is shaped by the memory of what we nearly lost." The chamber's light dimmed slightly as her words hung in the air. Mara Delenn added, "We know what it is to be fragile. That is why we value every life we meet." Vhoran took a step beside her. "And because our technology was born from scarcity, not abundance, we can offer something you may not need: resilience." Avaru's light pulsed in a pattern that might have been curiosity. "Resilience is valuable, but the Accord thrives not only on survival, it thrives on harmony." Chorus Jan's voice cut through the delicate silence. "Harmony doesn't mean never fighting, it means knowing when not to." The council murmured softly among themselves, their luminous veins flickering. Finally, Avaru raised a hand. "There is an opportunity before us, a crisis near the Rim systems. A relay station essential to the Accord's network has gone silent. Its orbit decays, its core damaged. We have not intervened because the region is unstable, magnetically volatile, and communication is impossible. If your species can repair or stabilize it, you will demonstrate both skill and intention." Sera met the eyes of her crew. "Then we'll do it." Avaru inclined his head. "You may attempt it, but be warned, others have tried. None returned." The relay station hung over a dying world, a sphere of metal scarred by radiation storms and magnetic turbulence. The planet below was cracked and lifeless, its surface streaked with the remains of ancient oceans boiled away. The Vanguard's promise descended into the maelstrom with engines strained to their limit. Plasma flickered across the hull. The relay itself was 3 kilometers long, turning slowly, its energy field fractured and sparking. "Radiation levels are lethal beyond 200 meters, said Lion Revek. "We'll need shielding suits with independent scrubbers." "Power fluctuations are cycling through the core," Vhoran noted grimly. "If we can't stabilize the regulator, the entire station will implode." Sera tightened her harness. "Then we start there." They split into 2 teams, Sera, Vhoran, and Lion heading for the core, while Mara, Chorus, and Ro managed external stabilizers. Inside the relay's corridors, lights flickered like dying embers. Machinery groaned beneath the stress of decades without maintenance. Human footsteps echoed through a place built by hands not human at all. At the heart of the structure lay the control nexus, a cathedral of machinery and energy coils. Vhoran worked with steady precision, patching alien circuits with improvised human connectors. His hands trembled from the radiation surge, but he kept moving. "Manual bypass engaged," he said, "power flow rerouted." The floor shuddered beneath them. Sera steadied herself against a console. "Core temperature dropping," Lion said, "but not fast enough." On the comm, Mara's voice crackled through static. "Captain, external stabilizers are failing, magnetic interference. Chorus is, the signal broke." "Repeat," Sera shouted. "Nothing," Vhoran cursed softly. We are losing them. Sera hesitated for only a second. Lion, hold position. Vhoran with me. We're getting them back. Outside, the storm was tearing itself apart. Magnetic arcs twisted through the void, shredding metal. Mara clung to the hull, tether line whipping as she reached for Chorus. His suit had been breached, a shard of debris lodged in the joint. Hold still, she shouted, sealing the tear with an emergency patch. He gritted his teeth. Just get it done. Rose's voice came over the comm, faint but urgent. We are losing the outer stabilizer. If it fails, the relay collapses. Mara looked up at the planet below, its gravity well yawning like a black sea. We're not leaving without fixing it. Sera and Vhoran emerged through an airlock, crossing the storm-lashed exterior. Vhoran's suit flickered with static discharge, each step a battle against invisible forces. Together, they reached the failing stabilizer, a structure of alien metal glowing with wild energy. Vhoran connected his portable generator to the coupling. We can reroute the current through our ship's relay. It'll burn the conduits, but it'll hold long enough. Do it, Sera said. The hum rose to a deafening pitch. Sparks cascaded around them. Stabilizer holding, Mara gasped through the comm. Chorus is clear. But the price came quickly. Vhoran's generator overloaded, the surge knocking him backward. His tether snapped, and he drifted for a moment into open void before Sera caught him, pulling him back with every ounce of strength she had left. Vhoran, he coughed, voice faint. System stable, we did it. Through her visor, she could see his grin, tired, defiant. The relay's lights flared once, then steadied. Across the galaxy, communication channels that had been silent for years burst to life again. They returned to the Alaris enclave battered but alive. When they entered the Hall of Reflection, the silence was deeper this time, not doubt, but awe. Avaru stood at the dais, light patterns shifting in slow rhythm. You entered the storm and returned, restoring what others deemed lost. Many would have abandoned the attempt. Sera's voice was quiet. We do not abandon what can still be saved. The Alaris Council conversed in a language of flickering light, then fell still. Avaru turned toward them. Your species has earned the consideration of the Accord. Yet one question remains. Will humanity's courage always serve others, or one day turn upon them? Sera met that luminous gaze without flinching. Courage doesn't turn on its own. Only fear does. If you trust us, we'll give you no reason to fear. Avaru inclined his head. Then humanity shall be judged not by words, but by deeds yet to come. For now, you are known. That night aboard the Vanguard's Promise, the crew gathered in the mess hall, a rare moment of stillness. The hum of the engines was a lullaby. Ro raised a mug of reconstituted coffee. To Vhoran, who saved us all again. Vhoran laughed weakly, his arm bandaged and his hair singed. To all of us, we're the first humans in galactic history to fix something we didn't build. Mara smiled. And the first to almost die doing it. Sera looked around the table, at her weary, brilliant, stubborn crew, and felt something deep in her chest shift. The galaxy had seen humanity's resolve, but the journey ahead was still long, and shadows still lingered among the stars. She gazed out the viewport, where the Alaris lights glimmered like distant embers. We're not done proving ourselves, she murmured. Vhoran nodded. No, but they're starting to believe. For the first time in centuries, humanity had found not just new worlds, but recognition, and with it, the weight of expectation. The Vanguard's Promise drifted between stars that glittered like old memories. In the wake of their success at the Alaris Enclave, humanity's name had begun to circulate among the Accord's networks. To some, they were symbols of resilience and bravery. To others, they were an untested species that burned too brightly, too quickly, like a spark that might ignite what it touched. In her quarters, Captain Sera Talan read the latest transmission from the Accord's central relay. The words glowed faintly across her tablet. Provisional status granted. Human delegation invited to the Assembly of Worlds. She let the sentence linger in her thoughts. This was the moment she had dreamed of since the day the coalition of nations had launched the Promise from Earth's orbit. Humanity would finally stand before the great assembly of sentient life, and speak not as wanderers, but as equals. But beneath the excitement lay unease. The message also contained a warning. Several factions opposed humanity's inclusion. The Vakar supported them, the Alaris remained cautious. Yet among the others, murmurs grew that humanity's willpower might someday turn to domination. When Sera closed her eyes, she could almost hear those whispers between the stars. The Assembly of Worlds was held within a colossal structure suspended in orbit around a gas giant known as Theria. From space, it resembled a ring wrapped around a pearl, its interior filled with lights, its surface shimmering with artificial weather systems that produced drifting clouds and auroras. As the Vanguard's promise approached, the crew gathered at the viewport. "By every old god," muttered Vhoran, eyes wide, "that thing's the size of a moon." Mara Delenn smiled faintly. "Thousands of civilizations represented here. I suppose they needed the room." Ro Santal leaned forward, his voice hushed. "We're really doing it, aren't we? Standing before the galaxy." Sera nodded. "And we'll make them see us for who we are." When they docked, they were greeted by a Vakar envoy, the same elder who had witnessed their rescue at Caravel. Its light patterns flickered with welcome. "Captain Sera Talan, the Accord honors your arrival. You have walked paths few of your kind have seen." Sera bowed slightly. "We owe our progress to the Vakar's faith." The elder's glow dimmed modestly. "Faith is not yet trust, but you walk well upon the line between them." The assembly's hall was vast beyond comprehension. Tens of thousands of beings filled tiered platforms that spiraled upward around a central sphere of light. Within that sphere stood the dais, the speaking platform where voices carried across the chamber through resonant energy fields. Sera walked the causeway with Mara beside her, while Vhoran, Chorus, and Lion watched from the gallery above. As the human pair stepped into the sphere, the murmurs grew. Species of every conceivable form, crystalline entities, vaporous minds contained in shells, towering insectoid forms, turned their attention to the newcomers. A being of liquid silver, flowing and shifting, announced the session. "Assembly of the Accord convenes. Petitioning delegation, humanity of Sol." Sera steadied her breath. "Esteemed members of the Accord, we come not to claim dominion nor to impose belief. We come because isolation teaches nothing. We seek to learn, to share what we have endured, and to stand as part of the whole." Her words resonated through the chamber, translated into hundreds of tongues. From the upper tiers, a deep, rumbling voice responded. "You say you seek unity, yet your history is painted with conquest. What assurance can you offer that your kind will not bring the same ruin here?" The speaker was a Vhoran, a massive, scaled being with eyes like molten gold. Their kind had once fought a war that nearly shattered the Accord itself. To them, peace was not an ideal but a scar. Sera met the creature's gaze. "Assurance lies not in promises but in actions. Judge us by what we have done since arriving. We risked our lives to save strangers. We rebuilt your relay. We ask only the chance to continue proving that what we build now defines us more than what we destroyed before." The Vhoran's jaw flexed, its scales glinting. "Words. Every species begins with noble declarations. It is survival that reveals truth." Before Sera could answer, the Vakar elder interjected, its tone smooth and musical. "The humans have already shown survival beyond measure. It may be that their strength will one day serve us all." But then another voice, thin and cutting, pierced the chamber. "Their strength may also consume." The speaker was unknown to Sera, a member of the Thalnic Collective, a hive-minded species whose mirrored eyes reflected no emotion. Records from their transmissions indicate that within their own history, they nearly destroyed their biosphere. Such recklessness cannot be dismissed. A wave of murmurs swept the assembly. Mara leaned close, whispering, "They've been studying our past broadcasts, all of it." Sera straightened. "We did destroy much, but we learned to heal. The very ship we came in recycles its own matter and energy. Every system aboard is sustainable. We are not the same people who first looked at the sky and saw only conquest. We are those who saw the sky and decided it was worth saving." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the assembly's presiding voice, the silver being said, "The petition shall be reviewed. The humans may remain as guests until deliberation concludes." Sera inclined her head, stepping back from the sphere. The chorus of voices resumed, some admiring, others doubtful, but all aware that something new had entered their midst. In the following days, the crew lived among the assembly's structures, enormous biomes and corridors where species mingled in fragile cooperation. Humanity's curiosity drew both fascination and suspicion. Some offered greetings, others turned away. Vhoran spent his days among the engineering guilds, sharing and learning designs. The Vakar were intrigued by his pragmatic approach to technology, not elegant, but endlessly adaptable. "This power conduit," said a Vakar engineer, studying a crude schematic Vhoran had drawn. "You shape it from alloy residue and carbon fiber," Vhoran grinned. "When you don't have perfect materials, you make do. It's what kept us alive." The Vakar's bioluminescence pulsed in what Vhoran had learned was amusement. "You humans find elegance in imperfection. That's all we ever had to work with." Mara, meanwhile, exchanged linguistic studies with the zealous, luminous beings of energy contained within translucent membranes. Their speech was made of harmonized pulses rather than words, and though translation was difficult, Mara felt an almost musical kinship in their rhythm. During one session, a zealous scholar said, "Through a shimmering translation sphere, your species expresses truth through conflict of sound, contrast, and tension. You speak like storms seeking calm." Mara smiled. "Maybe because calm means something only after the storm, but peace never lingers unchallenged." 3 nights after the opening assembly, alarms rippled through the habitat. The entire structure shuddered as shockwaves rippled along its frame. The Vanguard's promise immediately went to alert status. Sera raced to the bridge, where Ro was already at the sensors. "Explosion near the assembly's lower ring," he said. "Source unknown, energy readings consistent with fusion discharge." Mara burst onto the bridge moments later. "The Alaris delegation has been attacked, their quarters vented to vacuum." Sera froze. "Casualties?" "Dozens," Mara said softly. Vhoran's expression darkened. "Sabotage?" Ro nodded grimly. "And we're being blamed." The communication feed lit up with transmissions. Multiple Accord vessels were broadcasting warnings. A human vessel was sighted near the blast radius minutes before detonation. "That's impossible," Sera said. "All our shuttles are accounted for." "Someone used our transponder code," Vhoran muttered. "They cloned our signal." The bridge was silent for a heartbeat. Then Sera said, "We need to clear our name before they decide we're guilty." Security vessels swarmed around them like hornets, demanding they power down engines. Sera complied, but not before sending a secure burst transmission to the Vakar Elder. When the communication finally opened, the Elder's tone was tense. "The assembly is in chaos. The Alaris accuse you of betrayal. If you flee, they will hunt you. If you stay, they will detain you. Someone wants this to happen," Sera said. "Someone who fears what humanity represents." The Elder's lights dimmed thoughtfully. "You may be correct. There are forces within the Accord that profit from mistrust. But if I aid you, my own standing may fall." Sera's voice was low. "Then help us find the truth, and no one will ever know." The Elder hesitated, then said, "There is a surveillance node near the damaged sector. I will send you the coordinates, but you must be unseen." Under cover of the Assembly's artificial night cycle, Vhoran, Mara, and Chorus launched in a small maintenance pod. The station's gravity fields shimmered like heat haze as they approached the damaged ring. The devastation was immense. Entire segments had been blown apart, leaving debris floating in slow orbits. The surface of the breach glowed faintly from residual radiation. Vhoran maneuvered the pod close to the node indicated by the Vakar Elder. They found the surveillance array half buried in twisted metal. "Power cells dead," Vhoran muttered, prying open the casing. "Give me a second." Chorus watched the void outside. "We're not alone. Something's moving out there." "Can't be security," Mara said. "They sealed this section off." A shadow passed across the starlight. For a heartbeat, the three humans saw it clearly, a small craft, sleek and curved, its hull marked with unfamiliar symbols. It's transmitting in a scrambled pattern, Ro reported through the comm link, trying to mask itself from detection. Vhoran worked faster, connecting a portable cell to the surveillance node. Almost there, the node flickered to life, replaying its last captured image. The three humans watched in silence as a ship appeared, identical in shape and signal to a human shuttle, yet subtly different in detail. Figures moved within, none of them human. Mara's voice was cold. They built a copy. Chorus clenched his jaw. Someone's framing us. Not someone, Vhoran said grimly. Someone powerful enough to access our designs. They transmitted the data back to the Vanguard's promise and immediately began their retreat. But as they turned, a beam of energy lanced past them, slicing through the darkness. The alien craft had seen them. Go, 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 shouted Chorus. Vhoran accelerated, the pod shaking violently as they dove into the wreckage field. Energy blasts tore past, illuminating the twisted remains of the assembly's lower ring. Mara's hand tightened on the console. They're not trying to destroy us, they're hurting us. Ahead, a larger vessel emerged from the shadows, black, angular, and silent. Its markings were faint, but unmistakable, Vhoran. They set this up, Vhoran whispered. They're the ones who attacked the Alaris. Before they could react, the black ship launched a projectile, a magnetic net that enveloped the pod in blinding light. When Sera received the emergency beacon, her heart turned to iron. The Vanguard's promise launched immediately, ignoring the assembly's orders to remain docked. The ship streaked across the gas giant's orbit, sensors locked onto the faint trail left by the maintenance pod. Multiple vessels inbound, Ro warned. Assembly security, they're calling us fugitives. Sera's mind burned. Plot an intercept course anyway, we're not leaving them. Vhoran's voice came faintly through the comm, distorted by interference. They've got us, Vhoran vessel, transmitting proof, static swallowed the rest. Mara, Chorus, and Vhoran were alive, but for how long, Sera didn't know. She stared out at the storm-wrapped planet below and made her decision. Engage pursuit. The Vanguard's promise accelerated, engines roaring like defiance. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer just uncertain, it was under attack. The Vanguard's promise cut through the dark like a blade drawn in anger. Alarms pulsed red across the bridge, and the hum of the engines was no longer the soft rhythm of exploration, but the growl of pursuit. Trajectory locked, said Ro Santal. Target vector leads straight into Theria's magnetosphere, radiations off the scale. Sera Talan stood behind him, her hand gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles blanched. They're using the planet's storms to hide their escape. The pod's beacon is still transmitting, Ilianvar reported, weak but alive. Sera looked up at the swirling gas giant through the viewport. Its cloud bands glowed with electric storms the size of continents. Somewhere within that maelstrom, a Vhoran ship held three of her crew, Vhoran, Mara, and Chorus. She took a breath that burned her throat. Prepare the storm shielding, we're going in. Inside the captured pod, the world was a blur of motion and sound. Magnetic restraints clamped the humans to the deck as the Vhoran craft pitched downward toward the planet's upper atmosphere. Mara Delenn forced herself to remain conscious, biting down against the pressure in her ears. Across from her, Chorus strained against the bindings until his wrists bled. Vhoran Vei's face was pale, sweat shining on his brow. Don't, Mara whispered. They'll kill us if we fight. Chorus glared. They'll kill us anyway. Vhoran's voice came out in a rasp. Not if they need us for something. The hatch hissed open, revealing the Vhoran commander, tall and broad, with plates of dark armor that gleamed like obsidian. Its golden eyes regarded them without expression. You humans move quickly, the creature said, its voice like stones grinding. Too quickly. The accord grows soft, and it welcomes you as if your kind will not bring fire to its heart. We know better. Mara met its gaze. Then you planted the bomb, you killed the Alaris and blamed us. The Vhoran tilted its head. We removed a weakness. The Alaris have preached restraint for centuries. Restraint breeds decay. You should understand that. Your species rose because it refused to restrain itself. Vhoran spat blood onto the deck. We rose because we learned restraint. You don't know us. The Vhoran's mouth curled slightly, perhaps amusement, perhaps scorn. We know enough, and soon so will the Accord. The creature turned away. Outside the narrow viewport, the storms of Theria surged closer, lightning coiling across the clouds like living veins. The Vanguard's promise entered the magnetosphere with shields flaring blue-white. The hull creaked under the pressure of charged plasma, and the ship's artificial gravity shuddered. Ro's voice was taut. We can only hold this orbit for 15 minutes before the field burns through the coils. Then 15 minutes will have to be enough, Sera said. Find me that ship. Sensor readouts flickered and died under the interference. The gas giant's atmosphere roared around them, and electromagnetic arcs danced across the hull. Nothing solid, Ilian reported. Too much noise, but I'm getting brief spikes, metallic mass, roughly 3,000 meters below us. Sera's eyes narrowed. That's them. Bring us in closer. The deck trembled violently. Bolts of energy lit the bridge like silent explosions. Lion Revek clung to her console. Radiation spike. Shields are bleeding power. Redirect from non-essential systems, Sera ordered. Life support can run minimal for now. Through the chaos, the ship pressed onward, swallowed by Theria's clouds. In the Vhoran craft, the magnetic storm howled like a living thing. The commander activated a series of controls along the bulkhead, opening a projection of the gas giant's swirling mass. Once we reach the deep layer, it said, the human vessel will be torn apart if it follows. Their ship was not made for such forces. Mara struggled against her restraints. Then why bring us here? What do you want? The Vhoran's golden eyes flared faintly. To show you what your kind will become. It gestured toward the projection. The image shifted, no longer the gas giant, but a series of battle simulations, fleets of ships, planetary bombardments, human flags spread across conquered worlds. You will expand, as all young predators do. The Accord will try to stop you. It will fail. You will destroy it as you have destroyed your own world. Vhoran's voice was low. You think that's destiny? We don't. The Vhoran tilted its head. Destiny is merely pattern repeated until extinction. The words hung in the air like poison. Then a tremor shook the ship, small at first, then violent. Warning lights flared red. What is that? The Vhoran barked. Mara smiled despite the fear. That's our captain. Sera Talan stood braced at the helm, her face pale in the strobing light. The storm outside boiled around them, but she could feel the pull, the faint tug of the Vhoran vessel's gravity signature hidden below the clouds. Lock torpedoes on that signal, she ordered. Ro hesitated. If we fire in this soup, we could hit the pod too. Sera's jaw clenched. Then we get closer. The Vanguard's promise plunged deeper, hull temperature climbing past safety limits. Lightning wrapped the ship in tendrils of electric fire. Ilian shouted, energy surge ahead, that's the Vhoran drive core, they're trying to break orbit. Target acquired, Ro said. Range 2 kilometers. Sera's eyes burned. Fire. 2 kinetic torpedoes tore from the launch tubes, vanishing into the storm. A heartbeat later, the darkness exploded with light. The shockwave hit the promise like a tidal wave. The ship spun, alarms screaming. Direct hit, Ro gasped, gripping his console. The Vhoran hulls ruptured, but the pod's signal just went dark. Sera felt her stomach drop. No, Lion looked up from her sensors. Wait, new reading. Small craft detaching from the Vhoran wreck. It's them, inside the pod. Vhoran struggled to free the controls. The Vhoran ship was breaking apart around them, atmosphere venting in great bursts of plasma. Chorus, override the clamps, he shouted. Chorus ripped open the restraint couplings with brute force. Done, Mara pushed herself to the pilot's console, hands shaking. We've got maybe 30 seconds before this thing cooks. The pod shot free of the dying Vhoran vessel, spinning end over end through the storm. Lightning flashed across the canopy. Through the haze, Mara saw the outline of the Vanguard's promise descending like a burning angel. Vhoran laughed through the chaos. She found us. Then the pod's power failed. The controls went dark. Pod S falling, Rose said urgently, trajectories pulling it straight toward the lower atmosphere. Sera turned to Lion. Can we get under it? Not without burning the coils completely. Sera made her choice. Do it. Rose stared at her. If we lose the coils, we'll never get out of this storm. Sera's eyes hardened. Then we'll climb out on courage. The Vanguard's promise dove through the clouds, shields flickering like wings made of fire. The storm's heart surrounded them, pressure, heat, radiation, yet still the ship moved. In the lower decks, coolant systems burst one after another. The ship's structure groaned under the strain. Rose's voice cracked. Closing fast. Impact in 10 seconds. Sera gripped the helm, guiding the ship through blinding light. Brace for retrieval. The viewport filled with the tumbling shape of the pod. The Promise's magnetic clamps extended, locking onto it with a thunderous jolt. Contact, Rose shouted. We've got them. Sera allowed herself a single shaking breath. Pull us out. But before the engines could engage, the storm erupted anew. A final surge of magnetic energy swept through the clouds, slamming the ship sideways. Rose's console went dead. Engines offline, the Promise began to fall. The Vanguard's Promise tumbled end over end through the crimson depths of Theria's storm bands. Outside, lightning arced like the claws of some ancient beast. Inside, gravity bucked and twisted, throwing crew and equipment against the bulkheads. Stabilizers gone, Rose shouted, his voice lost in the roar of alarms. We're in free fall. Vhoran's team, Sera called out, holding fast to the railing. They're in the retrieval bay with the pod, Ilian replied. Pressure's holding for now. Sera slammed a hand against the intercom. Engineering, report. Static hissed. Then the strained voice of Chief Mechanic Dalen came through. We've lost main thrust. Coil housings are melting from magnetic overload. I can give you a restart if you buy me 90 seconds. You've got 60, Sera said. Do it. The ship groaned as its spin slowed, inertial dampeners flickering. Clouds churned past the viewports in streaks of ochre and gold. The gas giant filled every direction. There was no sky, only storm. Roe glanced over his shoulder. Altitudes dropping 6,000 meters from the hydrogen shelf. Sera's jaw clenched. We won't survive if we hit that layer. Hold her steady. She didn't know if anyone heard her. The bridge was chaos, lights flickering, consoles sparking, the sound of straining metal like a living scream. But through it all, Sera kept her eyes forward, locked on the faint hope that humanity's first true ship among the stars would not end here, swallowed by a storm. Below decks, Vhoran Vey clawed his way to the pod's hatch. His body was screaming from exhaustion and burns, but he forced it open. The air smelled of scorched insulation and ozone. Jan was already there, bracing the frame as the ship lurched again. We're inside the Promise, Corus shouted. Barely, Vhoran said. We need to get power to the clamps or we'll break loose. Mara Delenn crawled out behind them, clutching a toolkit. The manual overrides in the next compartment. Vhoran gave her a weary grin. You read my mind. They stumbled through the shaking corridor, sparks raining from ruptured conduits. Somewhere above, the ship's engines screamed as Dalen's team fought to restart the drive. When they reached the junction box, Vhoran tore open the panel and began crossing wires by hand. Come on, Mara steadied him, holding the light. You can't fix everything with willpower. Vhoran bared his teeth in something like a smile. Watch me. A surge of blue energy snapped through the conduit, throwing both of them back. The deck vibrated, then steadied. Corus shouted from the next room, clamps are holding. Vhoran pushed himself up, coughing through the smoke. That'll have to do it. On the bridge, Sera saw the stabilizer readings flicker green. Coil housings online, Roe reported. We've got partial thrust. Sera seized the controls. Bring us level. The Promise shuddered as the engines ignited, vectoring thrust sideways. The ship's tumble slowed, then stopped, leaving them hanging in the middle of Theria's churning chaos. The bridge crew let out a collective breath that was half laughter, half sob. Altitude holding at 5,000 meters, Ilian said. We're alive. Sera sank into her command chair. Status on the pod, Ilian smiled faintly. Secured, all three alive. For a long moment, the only sound was the storm. Then Sera whispered, "Take us up." It took nearly an hour for the Promise to climb out of Theria's atmosphere. When the ship finally breached the upper clouds, sunlight broke through, hard white light refracting off the hull's scarred metal. The crew stood at the viewports silent. The gas giant rolled below like a world of fire and gold. Vhoran, still wrapped in bandages, joined Sera on the bridge. His eyes were hollow with fatigue, but there was a spark in them. "You came for us," he said simply. Sera glanced at him. "You'd have done the same." "Probably," he admitted. "But next time, maybe don't fly into a planetary storm to prove it." Sera managed a dry laugh. "I'll try." The levity faded as quickly as it came. Around them, the bridge was a ruin of half-dead systems and burned-out panels. The ship had survived, but only just. "What now?" Vhoran asked. Sera looked at the stars beyond the viewport. "Now we find out what this was really about." They didn't have to wait long. The moment they cleared Theria's upper orbit, a transmission burst through every channel, accord frequency, unencrypted. It was the Vhoran Elder, golden patterns bright against pale skin. "Captain Sera Talan of the Vanguard's Promise, you are ordered to stand down and submit to inquiry. The Vhoran delegation has accused humanity of orchestrating the Alaris bombing." Vhoran swore under his breath. "They're blaming us outright." Sera straightened. "Patch me through." The holographic feed stabilized, showing not just the Vhoran Elder, but a full assembly of species, the Council of the Accord. The chamber was vast and crystalline, filled with light and shadow. Sera stepped forward, face steady. "This accusation is false. The explosion at the Alaris station was caused by a Vhoran device. We have evidence." The Elder's fractal lights dimmed. "Present it." Vhoran uploaded the recovered data core, showing sensor footage of Vhoran ships entering restricted orbit and energy signatures identical to the detonation. For a tense moment, the chamber was silent. Then a new figure appeared on the projection, the same Vhoran commander who had captured the human crew. Its golden eyes gleamed coldly. "Convenient," it said. "A story written by those who seek redemption. Do you think the Accord will trust untested beings from a backwater world?" Sera met its gaze without flinching. "I think the Accord will see truth if it chooses to." The Elder Vhoran looked between them. "The Council will deliberate." The feed cut. For the next 12 hours, the Vanguard's Promise drifted in orbit. The crew repaired what they could, though the ship was little more than a patchwork of exhaustion and hope. In the observation bay, Mara watched the gas giant turn slowly beneath them. Chorus joined her, his movements stiff from bruises. "You think they'll believe us?" she asked. Chorus shrugged. "They'll believe whoever scares them less." She smiled faintly. "And we're the scary ones." He leaned against the bulkhead. "We're the unknown. To them, that's worse." Mara watched the storm belts twist below. "Then we'll just have to be worth knowing." When the Council's response came, it was not a verdict but a summons. "Delegates of Earth," the Vhoran Elder said, "you are to appear before the assembly on Caravel. Bring your proof. The eyes of the Accord will judge you." Sera looked to her crew. "Then that's where we're going." Vhoran checked the power grid. "Engines are stable enough for a short hop. Anything longer, and we risk another burnout." Sera nodded. "Then it's a short hop that'll change everything." Caravel's orbit shimmered with ships of every shape and origin. As the Vanguard's Promise approached, traffic control directed them to a landing platform on the outer ring of the Accord Citadel, a structure so vast it could have swallowed cities. Crowds gathered along the observation galleries, curious and wary. Humans were still a novelty, fragile, restless creatures from a distant, unremarkable spiral arm. The landing struts touched down with a metallic groan. "Ready?" Sera asked. Mara, Vhoran, Chorus, Lion, and Rose stood behind her in their worn but immaculate uniforms. The human emblem, 3 interlocked rings, was stitched onto each shoulder. "As ready as we'll ever be," Vhoran said. They stepped out into the alien light. The Accord assembly was a cathedral of glass and geometry. Voices echoed from every direction, translated through harmonic fields. The humans were led to the central dais, surrounded by tiers of delegates, Vakar, Keril, Zelith, and dozens more. At the opposite podium stood the Vhoran commander, motionless as stone. Sera addressed the chamber. "We come not to plead, but to speak truth. Humanity did not attack the Alaris. The evidence you've seen was taken from the wreck of a Vhoran vessel we destroyed while rescuing captured citizens." A murmur rippled through the delegates. The Vhoran stepped forward. "They admit to destruction of our property, proof enough of aggression." Sera's voice rose. "Your property was a weapon. You kidnapped our crew. You tried to bury them in Theria's storms." The Vakar elder raised a hand, silencing the noise. "Enough. The data will be examined. Until then, both parties will remain under observation." Sera inclined her head. "We will comply." But as she turned to leave, the Vhoran commander spoke quietly, only for her. "You've earned their attention. Soon you'll wish you hadn't." That night aboard the Vanguard's Promise, the crew gathered in the dim glow of the mess hall. The air was heavy with exhaustion, yet beneath it ran something else, resolve. "They might lock us down," Vhoran said, "but they can't silence what we've shown them." Mara looked at Sera. "Do you think we'll win?" Sera's gaze drifted to the stars beyond the viewport, uncaring, infinite, beautiful. "Winning isn't the point," she said softly. "Surviving long enough to be heard is." Outside, the stars of the Accord burned bright and distant, and humanity's lone ship floated among them, scarred, defiant, and unbroken. The citadel of Caravel was a labyrinth of glass, metal, and light, suspended over the planet's azure-green atmosphere. Its corridors twisted like rivers of crystal, reflecting both the stars beyond and the uneasy expressions of every delegate who walked them. For the humans, the corridors were alien in every sense. Gravity fields subtly shifted beneath their feet, transluminescent panels glimmered with language they could not read, and the air smelled faintly of charged ions. Captain Sera Talan led her crew along the main gallery, their human uniforms crisp, but stained with soot from Theria's storm. Behind her, Vhoran Vey carried the portable power modules repaired in flight. Mara Delen clutched her translation tablet. Coris Jan flexed stiff wrists that bore the marks of restraint. Lion Revek monitored portable sensors, and Rose Santal kept an eye on their trajectory through the citadel. "Keep close," Sera said, "and remember, everyone is watching. Every step we take, every breath we draw, will be interpreted as proof of intent. We can't afford mistakes." Mara nodded. "They'll scrutinize everything about us, posture, tone, even micro-expressions." Coris grunted. "They'll be wrong about some of us anyway." Vhoran muttered under his breath, "They'd better be." The humans were escorted to a chamber at the center of the citadel, a circular room of suspended platforms, where the floor appeared to float above a vortex of light. Delegates from every Accord species surrounded the chamber in concentric tiers. The Vhoran commander who had captured them at Theria was present, its golden eyes fixed like molten metal. Vakar elders guided them to their assigned platform. "This chamber is under harmonic observation," one said. "Your actions will be recorded and analyzed by the Council's logic arrays. Speak plainly, speak truth." Sera inclined her head. "We understand." The presiding voice, resonant and metallic, addressed the chamber. "Humans of Sol, you stand accused of attacking the Alaris enclave. Evidence has been presented by the Vhoran delegation. You are permitted to present your own proof. You may also answer questions from the Council and delegates. Proceed." Sera stepped forward. She gestured to Vhoran, who placed the portable core into a projection field. Holographic images flickered into view. The Vhoran ship entering restricted orbit, energy discharges recorded in multiple spectrums, and sensor trails indicating that the pod's path had been manipulated. "This footage shows the Vhoran vessel acting independently," Sera said. "They captured our crew, deployed a bomb on the Alaris station, and attempted to kill them to create a pretext for their own influence. Humanity did not attack. We responded to prevent further loss of life." A murmur ran through the delegates. The Vhoran commander shifted slightly but said nothing. Then came the questioning. A Zelith delegate, shifting in translucent pulses, spoke first. Your species claims intention to protect, yet your history is replete with destruction on homeworlds and colonies. How do we know this is not a repetition of past patterns? Sera met the glowing eyes. Because we remember the consequences of our own past. Earth was nearly lost to greed and neglect. Every world we touch now bears that memory. We do not act without reflection, and we do not survive without responsibility. Another delegate, an angular being from the Carol Collective, asked, "You repaired the relay at Caravel, but that system is critical to the Accord's infrastructure. Were you not aware of the potential for catastrophic failure?" Vhoran spoke without hesitation. "We were aware, and we acted anyway. Because we understood that doing nothing would cost lives. That is the calculation of humanity now, risk for the sake of preservation, not destruction." The council deliberated quietly, flickering lights rippling across their forms. The Vhoran commander spoke again, voice like grinding stone. "Yet their technology is untested in Accord space. Their motives are unproven. They speak of caution, yet they charge headlong into storms across unknown systems. This is recklessness disguised as heroism." Sera felt a tension press against her chest. "And what choice would you have made if the Alaris were already dying? Wait for permission while people burned? You claim recklessness. We call it responsibility." Hours passed. The council consulted in silence, delegates whispering in harmonic tones. For the humans, the weight of every glance, every flicker of light from the observers became almost physical. Vhoran leaned over to Sera. "We're being judged, not just for what happened, but for who we are. Do you think they understand?" Sera shook her head slowly. "Some may never. But the ones who do will see more than the record. They'll see how we act when everything we care about is at risk." Mara touched the edge of the projection field, fingers hovering above the holographic display. "It feels like walking on the edge of a knife." "Then we walk deliberately," Sera said. Outside the chamber, tensions simmered. News of the incident at Theria had spread quickly. Many species feared that humanity's courage might become recklessness, their resourcefulness a threat to the delicate balance of the Accord. Factions began forming, quietly whispering in corridors, trading conjecture, and lobbying votes. Sera understood then the burden of being new. Humans were not just proving their innocence, they were proving their right to exist among beings whose histories dwarfed their own. Every act, every success, every failure would be remembered as precedent. Lion Revec, monitoring external channels, reported quietly, "There are delegates moving against us, not openly, but subtly. Votes are being swayed in private discussions." Sera's jaw tightened. "We cannot fight them directly. The only leverage we have is truth and courage." Later, the humans were allowed to rest on their platform. The room was silent, but for the hum of the ambient energy field. Mara spoke softly. "Do you ever wonder if we're too small for this galaxy, that we're just mistakes waiting to happen?" Sera shook her head. "No. Humanity's smallness is what allows us to see things clearly. We are accountable for every choice, every life. That perspective is rare in a universe of titans who forget the cost of power." Chorus crossed his arms. "Perspective doesn't win votes. It doesn't stop accusations. And it sure as hell doesn't protect you when someone wants to see you fail." Vhoran added quietly, "Then we make them see. Not by fighting, not by shouting, but by enduring, by surviving, by showing the consequences of honor, not violence." The words lingered in the chamber like a silent vow. The following day, the council reconvened. The Vhoran commander presented a new line of evidence, a detailed reconstruction of the Alaris station's damage, claiming that only humans could have deployed the detonation with the precision observed. Sera stood. "That reconstruction is flawed. It assumes a human shuttle's capabilities where none exist. It ignores sensor data from multiple species monitoring the orbit. And it ignores the survivors' testimony." Vhoran displayed the pod's recording, showing Mara and Chorus inside the magnetic restraints while the Vhoran craft maneuvered through Theria's storm. The images were clear, compelling, and undeniable. A murmur went through the chamber. The Vhoran's eyes flared, but they remained silent. Finally, the Vakar elder spoke. The evidence provided by the humans, corroborated by independent sensors, validates their claim. The attack was not conducted by Earth's crew. Responsibility lies with the Vhoran delegation. Shock rippled through the chamber. Some delegates gasped, others exchanged coded harmonic glances. The Vhoran commander remained rigid. Then you will ignore the precedent this sets. A small, untested species can survive a storm of our making and expose us. Sera met its gaze calmly. We survive because we choose life. We expose deceit because it cannot be allowed to rule the accord. That is precedent you cannot deny. The ruling was formalized. Humanity was cleared of wrongdoing, granted full guest status within the accord, and allowed provisional participation in council deliberations. The humans stepped back onto the platform, their bodies trembling from hours of tension. Outside the chamber, the citadel seemed to glow brighter. The galaxy's gaze had shifted, even slightly. Mara turned to Sera. We did it. They believe us. Sera's gaze swept the council. Some, not all, but enough to survive and enough to prove the next challenge. Vhoran exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Survived, sure, but I've never been so tired in my life. Chorus smirked. Tired is a small price for not being vaporized by aliens. Sera allowed herself a faint smile. The price is always small compared to what we protect. That night, aboard the Vanguard's Promise, the crew gathered in the observation bay. The citadel floated beneath them, a cathedral of light and shadow. Outside, Caravel's storms twisted in silent patterns across the atmosphere, and beyond, stars glittered like shards of hope. Sera looked at each member of her crew, Vhoran, Mara, Chorus, Lion, Ro, and saw courage, endurance, and unwavering loyalty. Humanity had faced the full weight of an alien council and emerged intact. They had survived accusations, storms, and death itself. Yet she knew the galaxy had not finished testing them. Tomorrow, she said quietly, we begin the next step. We prove that humanity is more than survival. We prove that we are a force for life, for hope, and for trust. Vhoran laughed softly, shaking his head. You always make it sound so noble. I just want a shower. Sera allowed herself a faint, tired smile. Tomorrow, we'll earn more than a shower. We'll earn a place among the stars. And for the first time since leaving Earth, she felt that humanity's journey, dangerous, fragile, and extraordinary, was finally beginning to matter. The citadel of Caravel was quieter now than it had been during the hearings. Delegates moved through corridors in muted discussion, but the tension from the previous days lingered like static in the air. Humanity had been cleared of wrongdoing, yet Sera Talan knew that clearing one accusation did not erase centuries of doubt about a species that had arrived in the galaxy without allies, reputation, or history. The Vanguard's Promise rested in a secure orbital dock, hull battered but intact. Sera walked along the observation deck, watching Caravel's storms twist beneath the citadel like currents of molten glass. The stars beyond shone as if in judgment and expectation. Her crew followed behind, their movements slow from exhaustion, yet their eyes held the quiet spark that had seen them through Theria's storm. Vhoran Ve broke the silence. We survived the council, the storm, and the Vhorans, but I can feel the galaxy watching us, like the smallest animal trying to walk through the teeth of a predator. Mara Delenn leaned on the railing, studying the patterns of Caravel's atmosphere. They are watching, but maybe, just maybe, some of them are learning what we are, that humans aren't just small or reckless, we adapt, we endure, we care. Chorus Jan shook his head. Care doesn't matter in politics. It matters when it's the only weapon you have, Sera said. The Vhoran delegation had not left quietly. Rumors spread that the commander was petitioning for sanctions against humanity, claiming procedural violations and hidden intentions. The humans knew that as long as the Vhoran presence lingered, their place in the accord remained precarious. Sera called a meeting of her senior crew. They gathered around a projection table in the ship's planning chamber. The Vhorans will not give up quietly, she said. They will try to exploit every weakness in the Accord, every doubt about humanity. And when they do, we need to be ready, not with weapons, but with evidence, allies, and resolve. Vhoran slammed a fist on the table. We can't rely on the Council to defend us. We have to make our own mark, show them who we are by action, not argument. Mara added, and we need to understand the other factions. Not just watch them, but learn them, anticipate their fears and motivations. That's how we survive in a galaxy that already doubts us. Rose Santel nodded. Then our first step is reconnaissance, knowing the networks, the factions, and the Vhoran's potential plans. If they attack again, we need the advantage. Sera looked at each of them, her chest heavy with both responsibility and hope. Then that is our mission. But more than survival, our true goal is recognition. Not for glory, but so that humanity can belong in this galaxy without constant suspicion. Days passed in careful planning. The Vanguard's promise moved through orbital lanes and sensor grids, observing Accord traffic and intercepting transmissions discreetly. Mara worked with the Zealth delegates to refine translation matrices, allowing human communications to be more precise and subtle than before. Vhoran analyzed power systems and propulsion technologies across multiple species, seeking both vulnerabilities and insights. Chorus and Lion maintained the ship's integrity while ensuring crew readiness for any unforeseen confrontation. Through it all, Sera's attention remained on the larger picture. Humanity's arrival was no longer a footnote, it was a variable the galaxy would have to account for. And then came intelligence of a Vhoran operation, a secretive strike force preparing to disrupt the Vekar relay network in the outer system. The evidence had been gathered from intercepted transmissions and a network of sympathetic delegates. The humans had the chance to prevent another disaster. Do we engage? Vhoran asked during the mission briefing. We've been careful so far, showing proof and restraint. Direct action could be seen as aggression. Sera's gaze was steady. We don't have to choose recklessness or submission. We act to prevent loss of life. That is proof of intent, not aggression. Mara frowned. And the Vhoran strike team, they are inexperienced with stealth in a system like this, Sera said. If we move strategically, we can intercept without a confrontation that endangers anyone else. Ro added, partial cloaking and magnetic interference fields will mask our approach. We can shadow them to the relay, disable the attack, and leave no trace. Sera nodded. Then we move at first light. We don't just survive, we show them what humanity is capable of when it protects, not destroys. The approach to the relay system was tense. Caravel's twin suns glinted off the clouds of orbital debris, casting long shadows across the Vanguard's promise. The Vhoran craft moved in a tight formation ahead, unaware of the human ship shadowing their every maneuver. Sera's heart pounded in rhythm with the ship's thrumming engines. Steady, she muttered. Let them make the first move. We'll intervene only if necessary. Mara monitored sensors, whispering updates. They're preparing a fusion pulse, targeting the primary relay nodes. Vhoran adjusted power flows to the magnetic interference field. We can scramble their navigation long enough to prevent detonation, but they'll notice immediately. Then they'll see us, Sera said, and they'll understand the choice humanity makes. The operation unfolded with precision. Using interference fields, the humans disabled the Vhoran craft's targeting system, diverting the fusion pulse into a safe trajectory that passed harmlessly through empty space. The Vhoran ship twisted and reeled, then disengaged, confused and unable to pursue. Sera allowed herself a brief exhale. They'll report back, but there's nothing to report. No harm done. Vhoran grinned faintly. Sometimes saving the day quietly is the hardest heroism. Mara nodded, watching the aftermath through the viewport. And sometimes that's enough to earn trust, even if it takes longer than a single hearing. Ro muttered, I just hope the Council sees it the same way. When the humans returned to Caravel, news of their intervention had spread among certain Accord factions. Delegates who had doubted humanity began to reconsider their judgments. The Vhoran delegation was quiet now, its accusations muted by the evidence of humanity's restraint and precision. In a private session, the Vakar elder addressed Sera. "You have acted with prudence and courage. Not only have you defended yourselves, you have prevented harm that others would have caused." Some delegates are beginning to reconsider humanity's place among them. Sera bowed her head slightly. "We act not for recognition, only for responsibility. But if trust grows, we will accept it as a beginning, not an end." The elder's light patterns pulsed slowly, as if in approval. "Then continue walking the line between caution and courage. Your species has potential that may surpass expectation. But every choice from here will weigh heavily on the Accord's perception of you." That night, aboard the Vanguard's Promise, the crew gathered in the observation bay once more. Caravel spun beneath them, a gem of storms and light. Stars shone beyond, indifferent and eternal. Vhoran stretched, rubbing his neck. "We've survived the storms, the Council, the Vhorans, and we're still here. Somehow I feel like we've just begun." Mara smiled softly. "We have, but the galaxy has started to listen, even if it whispers." Chorus leaned back, exhaling. "Whispers are fine for now. Loud applause will come later if we're lucky." Sera stood at the viewport, looking out into the stars. "We've made choices that define us, not by fear, not by strength, but by the life we choose to protect and the trust we choose to earn. That is humanity's place. That is the legacy we carry." Lion joined her silently, nodding. "And it's a legacy worth fighting for." Ro, always practical, added, "We'll be tested again. The Vhorans won't give up, and others may challenge us. But if we act wisely, we can shape how the galaxy sees humans, not just what it fears us to be." Sera turned to face her crew. "Then we continue, not for glory, not for recognition, but for the knowledge that in a vast galaxy, small or new does not mean insignificant. Every action, every choice matters, and we choose to matter for life." Dawn arrived over Caravel as the Vanguard's Promise prepared for departure. The crew had repaired and strengthened what they could, but the scars of their trials remained, etched into the hull, into their bodies, and into their hearts. Yet the ship floated proudly, defiant against the void, a symbol of perseverance. The humans stood on the observation deck one final time before departure. Caravel's storms churned, luminous in the twin suns' rising light. Sera spoke softly, to herself as much as to her crew. "We came here as newcomers, uncertain and untested. We leave knowing the galaxy watches us, not yet fully trusted, not yet fully known, but seen. And that is enough to continue." Vhoran gave a rare, sincere smile. "Seen is the first step. Surviving together is the second." Mara nodded, her eyes reflecting both exhaustion and wonder. "And maybe someday we'll be remembered not for the storms we faced, but for the choices we made in the light after them." Chorus clapped Vhoran on the shoulder. "I like that. Makes dying for once seem optional." Sera allowed herself a small laugh. "Then we'll continue, always forward, because the stars don't wait for anyone. And neither can we." The Vanguard's Promise ignited its engines, leaving Caravel behind. The Citadel shrank into the distance, a testament to trials endured, alliances forged, and the fragile hope of recognition earned through courage. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, full of uncertainty, full of danger, but also full of possibilities. Humanity had arrived, scarred and humble, yet unbowed. And among the stars, the crew of the Vanguard's Promise knew that no storm, no accusation, and no shadow of doubt could ever erase the truth they carried. Humanity had chosen to endure, to protect, and to belong. They had claimed their place among the stars.